So continuing in the get started section inside the installation, now we have add React to our website. So what we're going to do in this video, we are going to read this page to understand everything that it's explaining here, but we are also going to apply to an actual website. So just to give you a little bit of a spoiler here, we are going to apply React to this very simple website. That's a real website, but it's a very simple one without React. So we are going to add React to it as the doc is recommended here. But first of all, let's read what it's explaining so we can apply to our website. So we can apply React to any website, and the whole point of this post is to explain that you don't need to start from scratch with React. You can add React using this technique that's called gradual adoption. So we just add a new area in your website, and then you can just plug React components there. So let's see how it works in theory first, and then later you're going to put in practice with a real website. The first step is that you need to identify a div. Usually you are going to use an ID, so you can get this ID later in the JavaScript code to render the component from React here. So that's really important. You can have other HTML here and here, but you need to have a very clear target to render our React component. So that's called the root HTML. So maybe it's not the root of your website, but that's going to be the root for React. Then the next step is to add script tags. But what is script tags? We need to have the React, and we also need to have the React DOM. React is the component model, and the React DOM is how to render components in the HTML. Okay, and also of course you need our component. So this is just the library, the React library, but in this example they are saying to have a like button. So you need to also have the file to implement your like button. So this is also required because you need the library, and of course you need to have your own component. There is one thing that is really important to understand, this approach here has this pitfall because it's not suited for production, it's for development. So for production we need to change the name of this script for production, but we are going to do this in practice in a little bit. So the third step here is to actually create our React component. We are not going to explain all the details about React right now because we have a lot of videos to talk about, for example, use state. But here you just trust on me, you are going to understand this later. The idea here is okay, we are going to create a function, a JavaScript function like this, and it's going to create an element using this React API, and that's going to generate a button with this handler and with this label. Basically, that's it, what this component is going to do. And now we are ready to add this component to our page. So how we do that? Remember that I said it was really important to identify the div that we had. So here where the ID from the div comes into this code. So you need to get this element. So that's going to be the root node. And then you create a root with the React DOM API. And you have this element here, the root element. And last but not least, because that's the most important part, we ask for React to render this component for us, and then it's going to have the like button rendered in the page. Let's recap. We get the div that is just like an empty div because React is going to write inside this div, so it needs to be empty. Then later you create a root using this empty div, and then we ask for React to render what? To render our like button. If you look here, this like button is our component, the like button function here. Okay, so now we have a page with a button. So it says, congratulations, now you have a button in your page from React. And you could also render the same component in different locations. So here he's just providing an example that you could have another div with another root or some other name here. And you could also render again using React 2, 3, 4 buttons. For example, you could display one like button for each comment or for each post in your blog. So they also have this example here, but as we are going to do in practice, I'm not going to explore this example. We are going to explore our example. One last step here is to make this code ready for production. So you need to minify the JavaScript. So we have already the library minified for us. So it's basically the same files, but with different name for production prefix here and also minifier. So the size of these files are smaller than the previous one that we are using. And also here in the production one, we don't have like warnings for development mistakes because now we are in production. So let's stop here. I will go back to this topic later and let's do this in the actual website. So we have 5 steps to do. So let's scroll up a little bit and let's just follow the steps. So first we need to have a div. So I'm going to open my website in WebStorm here. Okay, and I'm going to just show you here that we don't have React in this website. As you can see, we don't have any React dependency here. Actually, don't have any dependency, just dev dependency here. So it's like a very simple JavaScript project, but without any React dependency. As you can see here as well, we don't have in the heading any React script. So we are going to start using React right now. So where we are going to use React? I'm going to use React here in this part here. I think we have Instagram. Yeah, we have like YouTube and Instagram here. We are going to replace YouTube with the render from React. So we are going to remove this part here and we're going to use React. So what I'm going to do for now, I'm not going to remove it. We are going to render below this. So I'm going to create a new div and I'm going to put the ID here, like social icons. So that's going to be our ID, okay? And it's going to be an empty div. So that's the first step. We need to have an ID in our div that is empty. And now let's go to the second step. And you need to copy this script. I'm just going to copy this and put in the end of our body. So here we go. And in this case, it's not going to be like button, it's going to be social icons. So let's go back here and you also need to create this component. So I'm going to just copy this as our initial code. I will create here social icons. I'm going to paste it. I'll call social icon because I'm going to display just one icon here. I'm not going to have any states. This icon is going to be very, very simple. And you need to create a component. So I'm going to return here. How is this component? Is an A tag. So I'm going to put A here. So I'm going to copy this link for the href here. And href, and then you have a link here. And this is going to be like YouTube. Later you can come up with a better style, but for now, that's our social icon. Let's return to here to see the next step. So now we need to render this component to our page. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to add here in the bottom. So it's called social icons. And you have React DOM, and then we are going to render this element, but not the like button, the social icon component. So it's ready. Let's see. I have a runner here, a way to run this project. That's npm run watch. Okay, it's done. And now it's loading the page. And as you can see in the bottom here, we have our YouTube. And let's see if this is a link. So yes, if I hover it, I can see the link in the bottom. And if I click, we can go to YouTube. So yeah, this is working. So we are creating a component using React instead of using just plain HTML. So as you could see, it's working exactly as expected. And you could also reuse the component in multiple locations. So let's see if you can also use this tag. So we have this code minified for production. So let me go here and let's replace this tag just to make sure it's still working. It's reloading the browsers. Okay, it's still working. It's still here, like the YouTube. So we have it ready and we followed all the steps in the documentation. Now they have one extra step here that they are talking about JSX. But what is JSX? JSX is a better way to write components. Instead of using this create element and provide the component, the HTML component name here, and the properties here, and the children's here, we can just use like this very similar HTML style. It's not HTML, but it looks like HTML. So we are going to replace our implementation with this style as well. So let's change our code to be using JSX. So I'm going to return to our code. I'm going to open this. And instead of returning create element, I'm going to return an href. Like basically we have the same elements, but in a different way, right? I'm not changing the values that I'm providing here. I'm just changing the way to write the same code. So let's see if you need to do something else for the JSX to work, as this JSX is not like plain JavaScript. And yes, we do. Like we need to use a compiler. In this case, they're using Babel. So you need to add this Babel. And also here in the script tag importing our code, we need to specify Babel here. So let's copy this. Let's go to our index again. And I need to use this name. That's our file name. I'm going to save. Now it's saying like we can replace. We already did this replacement. Now we are using like JSX in our file, and let's see if it works. Yeah, the same result, like we get back our React component, but now we are using JSX. Let's go back to the docs one more time. And here is a very important information as well. Like the Babel script compiler is not like the best way to use this transpilation, like this transformation between the JSX to JavaScript. The best way to do this is like in a build step, like before you deliver it to the web browser, you should convert this to plain JavaScript. So it's not the best use of this tool to just run in the browser this transformation, because that's going to be very slow in a real website. So what you need to do, you need to install a few things here. So I'm going to add like this like converter, like the Babel CLI. So it's going to convert locally and not like in the website. So I'm not going to run npm init because I'm already in an npm project. I'm going to just copy this part because I need to install Babel and Babel preset. Let's go back to our project. Let's stop the server. Okay, now it's installed. Let's see what's the next step. So you don't need anything else. Both React and the application code can stay as script tags with no change. So okay, we have this dependency, but you don't need to change the way that we import React and our application code. So now it's asking us to create a folder called source. Let's follow exactly what he's explaining here. And we are going to move our file to this folder. So we are going to move social icons to the source folder. Okay, it's there now. And the watcher will create, so we need to create something to watch this file and to convert our file. So we are going to use this npx Babel. Okay, I'm going to just copy and paste this. And so take a look here, we are using JSX. Okay, so now I'm going to run this and let's see what happens. So you can see here that as we have this -- watch flag, this is not going to stop because it's going to watch our files and refresh all the time you make changes. and we are specifying here that we want to have the output in our current folder, and that's why it's getting from the source and putting in the current folder. And we are saying like, okay, we want to use this preset. It's just a way to teach Babel how to handle the files. So now if you take a look in the file that was generated by Babel, it's very similar to the first file that we created manually. Why? Because, as I said, this is just a way for you to do exactly the same. So here we are creating a component using JSX, but JSX is just like a syntax sugar, just a better way to write code. But in the end, it's going to use create element anyway. Now we can remove Babel from here because we are already using JavaScript and not JSX. And remember to remove this type here because you're not using Babel anymore. And also, as I'm using an IDE and the code was refactored to move to the source, so we don't want to move to the source, we still want to have the social icon here. So let's see if it's working. Yes, it's still working. As you can see here, we still have YouTube here in the bottom. So we are using the Babel to convert this in our machine and not in the browser for our clients. Okay, to wrap up this video, it's also explaining here that the Babel is going to also transpile other features that maybe are not available for old browsers, so maybe it's a good idea to use Babel anyway. And you can use also React without JSX, but like that's going to be a little bit boring. I never saw like a company that really uses like React without any JSX because it's a lot of code to write, like if you need to write like this. But of course, you can use like this as well. And in some cases, it's nice to create elements using React when you need to have something like very dynamic. But that's an exception. Like that should not be the rule. And it's also saying here like, okay, if you want to use create element all the time, maybe you should create an alias, like just assign it to a very small variable so you can call like this. But it's not recommended. It's just a way for you to understand that it's possible to use React without JSX, but the recommendation for sure is to use JSX. So in this video, we go over like a lot of steps to use like React in an existing website. And it was, I think, a very helpful lesson to understand how create element and JSX are related. Actually, they are the same. JSX is just a nice way to write create element calls. So see you in the next video because we have a lot to cover in this series. Bye.